Welcome on in. Hot topic here on Morning Kickaround. It is Friday, March 6th, about 10 hours away from what is supposed to be opening night for USL Championship. Negotiations of the unresolved CBA contract that they're working on continues, and we're walking right up to that edge of a strike here, Jason.
Yeah, so let's give the update as we understand it. Things happened yesterday. We'll tell you what happened yesterday. But obviously, what matters for most people and fans who are planning on going to games this weekend, and we do kick off with the Commonwealth Derby or whatever that's called between Lexington and Louisville. That game is today, so we are hours away from the kickoff of the 2026 USL Championship season, and you could certainly argue this is the most important season in USL Championship history because it is the runway that leads to a First Division League launching and promotion and relegation. It is all supposed to be build for USL. And if there's a strike today, well, that would certainly slow down some momentum. It would certainly be a bad look for USL. We could argue whether it's a bad look for the players. We know that the players authorized their negotiating team to call a strike. That's just authorization. Doesn't mean a strike is happening, but it's right there. The finger is hovering over the button for strike. They're ready to push it if necessary. And we're talking about, I think it's Duke Lacroix and Connor Tobin, who are really the guys leading this from the USLPA side. And so where we are is, will the players strike? That's the big question hanging in the air. We reached out today, and what we got was, we're not going to talk about it right now, right? There's no update. Like, they're not saying we will strike, and they're not saying we won't strike. They're just leaving it open right now. But we should talk about what happened yesterday, because even if it doesn't have a fundamental and substantive effect on whether the strike happens, it certainly is something people are talking about, Rob. So what happened yesterday?
Yesterday, the Players Association reacted to this email that was sent late Wednesday night. I think it was 11 p.m. Eastern from the league, sending this note of frequently asked questions to all the players, which kind of outlined what it is that's happening this week. Can you continue to play? Can you cross a picket line? What does that mean if you do cross a picket line? Will there be ramifications if you do or don't participate in a potential strike?
Right. So this is the opener. It's basically saying we gave a good offer and we're upset about the authorization to strike, or we're disappointed. And here's the information you need to know. Now, it's got a Q&A format here. You can see the questions. Does the USL Championship plan to continue operating? Yes. We are committed to giving our fans and community the best, the professional soccer experience they have come to expect from us on an uninterrupted basis, and we have a plan in place to continue operating in order to meet those commitments. Now, how harshly you read the tone, I guess, is up to you, Rob. I guess it depends on what side of this question you're on. If you were on the we just want some soccer and we don't care and just get this over with, guys, stop, mom and dad stop fighting, then you might not read too much into this tone. But if you were on the players' side and you think that the players' complaints and their demands are reasonable, then this kind of does read harshly. Now, having looked a little deeper, and I had an emotional reaction to this, like a lot of people did, like, oh man, I think I called it cartoon villainy is what I called it. Ooh. On Blue Sky. But having, thought about it a bit and having learned from some people in our Discord, to be honest with you, the ultras talking about this, it seems as though USL kind of knows they can walk up to a line that this does not necessarily violate the regulations around labor negotiations. And those are written down. Like that's a governmental document that says you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do this. So can management communicate directly with the members of the union? They can't negotiate directly with the members of the union. So whether or not you view this as negotiation, I guess, is maybe eye of the beholder, but probably isn't across a legal line, because otherwise, why would USL put themselves in jeopardy, right?
Yeah. And then so, I mean, to be fair, you can have the objective side is like, yeah, it's good to inform the members of the union what exactly is at stake and what is, add some clarity if there was any sort of confusion in here, and they spell it out here. So fair enough. but it is kind of wild to see it. And it's kind of a sign of the times that talks about what should you do to cross a picket line. And that's interesting language to use.
Yeah, it's basically saying, hey, if you don't like this whole strike idea, you can come over to our side. Now,
On it.
crossing a picket line is a big, big thing. It's a massive, massive thing. I've never been a member of a union, but I'm certainly sympathetic to unions, to collective bargaining, to collective action when it comes to the balance between management and labor. Now, my grandfather would roll over in his grave if he heard me saying things like pro-union talk, but I'm
My
a different.
grandparents too. They said some pretty harsh things too. That generation definitely had a certain thought about unions.
Well, I think it depends on which side of the ideological spectrum you're on and whether you were management or labor. If you grew up in Detroit with a family who worked in the auto industry, probably you're very pro labor. If you didn't, if you're like my grandfather who had oil interests in the West, yeah, maybe weren't so pro labor, pro union. So again, I won't go question by question, but it does basically say we're not gonna retaliate against you. If you cross the picket line, you'll have a place. Can you be blacklisted? It is illegal for a union to blacklist you later from employment or otherwise discriminate against you for crossing a picket line. The USLPA may be liable for any wages you might lose if they try to do so. At most, they may require you to retender dues and initiation fees before returning to work. That part there in the second question. Will I lose my standard player agreement if I cross the picket line? In bold letters, absolutely not. Exclamation point. You cannot lose your standard player agreement, wages, or benefits if you cross a picket line. So again, this is very much, hey, it's not going to be bad if you cross the picket line. Trust us. Everything is going to be fine. You're protected legally. You're going to keep your standard player agreement. Everything is going to, and you can go back to the union when this is all over, right? Basically saying there is trying to imply to the players, there is no incentive for you to go along with what the union leadership is telling you. Right? Isn't that the message here? I mean, again, I know it's kind of a harsh reading of tone, but that's what I see here.
Yeah, I mean, you could read into it like that, but again, if you go from the management side, they're just spelling out what the repercussions of any decisions to go strike or not to strike are. So this came late Wednesday. Thursday, the players union replied, and they opened their reply statement with the timing and the tone of USL HQ's communication is crystal clear, and it's an effort to scare players out of exercising their right to strike. This is classic union busting in action. Is that a dramatic reply, or is that plain true?
Well, okay. Again, we are in the extreme rhetoric portion of the negotiations because the season starts today, right? Because there is no deal. We are in that part of the back and forth where nobody's going to hold back. Right now, again, there are things that regulate what management, in this case USL, can do and say, and certainly they understand. I think they're probably keenly aware that it's really tough to sell a pro management argument as sort of like this is all the best, this is the best for everybody, right? But I mean, I'm sure there will be people on the management side of this equation, right? There will be people say, suck it up, players. This league is growing. They want to take the next step and you're holding them back. I think that's probably a thing. But I think generally, and you look at the character of fan bases in places like Detroit, generally, I think that it's a pro-labor kind of American soccer fan base. So they have to walk a fine line with the messaging that they put out there. And I don't know if they were naive about this email getting out. By the way, credit to Jeff Reuter at The Guardian, if we didn't already do that, for having this. I don't know if they were naive about that. Probably not. And again, they know that there is a line that they have to walk in legalese or in legal ways as well. And for the players, what harm does it do for them to say this is union busting? Right? It doesn't hurt them at all. And again, maybe it's a harsh reading or maybe it's an incorrect reading via the legal ramifications. But it does feel like that. It feels like trying to encourage players to cross the picket line if there is one.
Yeah. The players' statement goes on to say, unfortunately for the League HQ, our players know exactly what has been put on the table, and the Players Association has been transparent with their membership every step of the way. So these attempts to confuse or inject fear miss the mark, essentially, to paraphrase there. So we are less than 10 hours or so away from opening kickoff of the weekend. So, time is ticking, and I'll keep on refreshing the email to see if anything pops up.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you and I are right now kind of in a difficult spot because at any moment, while we're sitting here ahead of kickoff in Kentucky, there could be an agreement announced, or there could be a strike announced. And while we're talking about, we could be Christy Nome not realizing that we'd been fired, kind of situation, standing up here. Look, the other thing I would say, and it got brought up there by Soccer Night in Detroit, sounds like right to work, if you ask me. Now, my understanding is imperfect on this, but basically, right to work is if there's a union around an industry that represents a portion of the workers, you cannot be compelled to join the union in order to work in that industry or that business. Right? That's basically what that is, right? So, and that's where USL sending this email out is working within. They work across the country, right? There are going to be right to work states under the umbrella of USL with some of those clubs in places where those laws apply. So, again, this is all kind of saying USL is probably within their rights and probably nothing they did is illegal. But at this point in time, when we know what is at stake and when people are talking professional standards for players, for the league to say, hey, cross the picket line, leave your brethren behind who are fighting for something that they see as basic. We're not talking about, hey, I need an extra $1 million. That 12 you gave me last year wasn't enough. Like, we're talking about just the basic things necessary to be a professional soccer player. That is certainly not, it's not good. It doesn't look good for anybody.
Yeah, so we will continue to monitor monitor the situation. But before we move on, shouldn't miss out on the fact that, like, now that we're into Friday and there's no resolution here, fans and vendors and everyone that works these games are now, people were like curious, I wonder what's going to happen this weekend, but now it is directly impacting your plans. Right. One of our ultras, great soccer content creator as well, Tom Soccer Zombie, he's saying that he should be in Kentucky. He has had to cancel his plans. He was going to feature this within his show, and he's not able to do that. And he decided to avert that leg of his trip. And I'm sure there's many other people saying, I've got tickets for the game tonight. Are we going or what?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that sucks, right? Again, fans get caught in the middle of this stuff, right? Fans, they're saying, hey, we want soccer. We want to support our teams. Don't blow this up. And they're not saying that to just management. They're not saying that to just the players. They're saying it to everybody. And that puts a lot of pressure on the players. And obviously the appetite for the players to actually strike, step away from this, potentially blow things up. And, the union, or sorry, the USL itself, so who says they have a plan to then potentially bring in a bunch of scabs as they make promises about continuing on? Like, what does that do to the image of the league, and how much does that set back their bigger plans for D1 and Pro Rel?
Yeah, that's a good point there. As part of the FAQ is like saying that the league can essentially has the right to find other players is mixed into that. So that was one of the most cutting parts of that email that the league sent out late on Wednesday night.